I'm recording this for people that's not here. Okay. So today in the lesson planning cycle, we're going over part 2 and what it means to like create activities and deliverables for your classroom. Okay. So last week we focused on understanding the overall relationship between one lesson and the overall unit. Okay. The next thing we focused on was deconstructing TEACs so that we understand how to write objectives and clearly examine how these skills in the TEACs are what scholars need to understand in order to be able to demonstrate the learning. Okay. Everybody walked away with that understanding? So, reflection question. On that sign-in sheet where it has reflection question, that's where I want you to put your answer. So, based on what we went over in last week's PLC, what changes have you made in your classroom or to your planning? Where have you fallen short and where have you excelled? So based on what we went over last week, and Ms. Jenkins, you can just put like what challenges you may have with creating activities. Okay. So based on what we went over last week, what are some of the changes you made in your classroom or with your lesson planning? What has still been difficult for you? And where have you excelled? Ms. Jenkins, what'd you put? What are some challenges you have with creating activities?
Like going from the actual unit plan to like making a day to day is a challenge that that takes up 90 minutes because sometimes my unit plans they're just so broad, so it's hard to go from that to like what to actually do day to day.
Okay. So last week's PLC would have really helped you. So I'll circle back with you with that. Mr. G, what'd you put?
I said that I'm doing more thinking aloud. So thinking aloud allows them to think with me, kind of as to how I would do it. I'm struggling a bit with like rigor and time management of the content, and that is twofold with scaffolding. Number one, because there's gaps from COVID and stuff.
I want to pause right there. How did last PLC help you be able to scaffold? So how are you now able to scaffold? You said you are now starting to scaffold more. How are you able to do that based on what you learned from last PLC?
So one skill pouch too is like solving equations. So when I do one thing aloud, I'm like, okay, this let me solve it. I'm able to pick that up. So that's where the scaffolding comes in for the current unit. That's been helpful, but I want to do more.
Mm-hmm.
So we're good there. And because of that, I'm unable to go bigger because they get so lost. Like, what I do now. So
Mm-hmm.
I gotta manage my time better so I can have it scaffolding in. So I'm covering the gaps while covering content. And I'm doing more CFUs, so that's been helpful in telling me what they are learning or grasping and what they're not. I will focus more on if needed.
Good. What about you, Miss Ortolano?
For me was I wanted to relate the movie that we're watching to their personal life and difficulties or stages of difficulties in life. So my students find it hard to. They're like, well, this kid doesn't live in the U.S., so I really have nothing to do, or I don't have any similarities to them. So I have to bring the whole like matter. You have to do a lot of examples, and then you're like, oh, you're right, you're right. That's true. It's similar to that. So I guess just having them relate their life to what's going on outside the U.S. too. I tell them it's basically the same. We just have different themes, but it's the same thing. So they kind of like understand.
Yeah. What about you, Miss Morgan?
So I have been asking more check for understandings. I have also breaking the T's down because sometimes my T's have two things like you got to combine like terms and distribute in one T. So I have broken it down to where maybe today we will just distribute, and then next time, maybe today we might just combine like terms, and the next day we might distribute, and then another day we might do a little bit of both, and we might. It's like so. I'm trying to read the T's to where I can break the T's down. I said we are. My class is getting better with time management. Also with myself, I said we because if I'm not on time, they're not on time. So we getting better with time management. So we have. I've been seeing us get through work more faster. Also, I said I've been moving around the class, seeing who really knows. I used to make talents, but now I'm really seeing who can write it down. And also allowing the students to teach the class for me. Like I'll make a mistake and just keep going. And then they're like, oh, Miss Moore, you made a mistake. I'm like, no, I didn't. To let them know that even I'm your teacher, if you see the mistake and I say no, you should be like, no, it's here. So I'm allowing mistakes from me for them to correct it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Mr. Inslee, we just on that sign-in sheet, it's a reflection question column, and then this is where you answer that question. So based on what we went over last week in last week's PLC, what changes have you made in the classroom to your planning, and where have you fallen short or where have you excelled? Has it still been difficult? Whatever. All right, so today, look at that lesson internalization guide. So it should be one of your tabs, the lesson internalization guide. And so today we're picking up on step 3. Okay. And so step 3 is based on you scripting out your exemplar. And so an exemplar is basically any activity that you give the students, you need to do. You need to do it to the basically the mastery that you want students to get to. Okay, so you need to make yours as perfect as you want students to get to. Like yours is the end goal. Okay, but before you do that, you have to first create the deliverables. We are focused on the scholar output of the lesson. You'll hear me say scholar output because think of yourself as you are inputting information, you're teaching, you're showing, but you need something to show you that they retain that information and they actually learned it. So that's the scholar output. Okay, so everything that you do, they need to be able to show you that they understood it, that they were engaged. Like you need some proof of evidence. So like even if I'm up here talking, right? I know that you're engaged. I see you looking, right? I see you listening. I'm asking questions. That is the output. So that's how I know that you're understanding what I'm saying. Okay. Scholars are the same way. So what we've seen is like a lot of teachers are standing at the front and they're just lecturing. 13, 14, 15-year-olds, they're not paying attention to you. They can look dead at you and not be paying attention. So what are they doing to let you know that they are paying attention? Whether they are taking notes, whether you are telling them, listen to what I'm saying, and I want you to be able to tell me this, like they have to have some kind of output. Okay. So now that we have internalized what our scholars know, which is that objective, because that's what they need to know by the end of the lesson, and we understand the skills scholars need to show, which is the TEAC. Those are the skills that they need to show us. We now need to come up with what they need to produce. Okay. Okay. So what is the no?
What do scholars need to know?
What is the no?
Oh, you asking me?
What is the no?
The know is to know like what they need to know beforehand to get the situation. No, it's objective.
So that just let my question right there just let me know that I wasn't clear. That's y'all output, right? So I'm gonna go back. So when we broke down our teaks, we broke it out down in know and show, right?
Yeah.
Well, who was the skill? Sorry.
Know and show. What scholars need to know by the end of the lesson is what?
The skills.
The objective.
How are they gonna show you that they know that objective?
The executive.
The output.
The what they say.
The teals, the teaks, the skills.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back.
So know is the objective, and then show the critiques.
So I'm gonna go back a couple slides. Last week. So remember we talked about this. The three most important parts of the lesson. Okay? The objective of the lesson is what you want scholars to walk away knowing. They need to know this by the end of the lesson. Warriors will be able to understand whatever, right? They need to know this. So whatever your objective is. The TEKs, that's from the state. The state already decides those. Yeah. These are the skills they are saying every 11th, 9th, whatever grade, 11th, 9th, 10th grader needs to know by the end of your school year what they need to walk away knowing. But with TEKs, we can't learn all TEKs in one class period. So we break them up into little objectives, bite size, right? The exit ticket is the tangible proof that's going to show you that they grasp these skills. Okay? And that they know this little bit of whatever skill you're highlighting from that TEK. Okay. That makes sense? Yeah. So I'm going to go back to this slide. So, what is the show?
The exit ticket.
Both.
The
The skill is how you get to what the exit ticket. The tangible proof is the exit ticket. The skills are also showing, but the objective is the exit ticket is the tangible proof. What is the no?
The objective.
The objective.
What they're trying to learn.
Yep. Yep. That's the what.
What they walk away with that.
Mm-hmm.
Go right.
Yep. Okay. So creating a deliverable. The first step you want to do is focus on the skill of the TEK. What do scholars need to show you? So when we deconstruct the TEK, what do they need to show you? What do they need to be showing you? Whether that is analyzing, right? In English, they do a lot of analyzing, right? I had a teacher I was speaking with the other day, and one of her TEKs was analyzing. Scholars need to be able to analyze character development through theme. Well, that means one of the activities can't be simple recalling vocabulary. You can't just go over vocabulary the entire lesson, because we'll just recalling vocabulary and definitions get you to the point where you're able to analyze a character. No, you're not practicing that skill through your activities. You're not practicing analyzing. Okay? So all of your activities need to be practicing the skill that you want them to walk away knowing. So here's an example. And I think I have this. No, I don't have this on there. So here's an example. Okay. So my content area I have on here is English 1. Can you all see that a little bit?
Not really.
Okay. So I have on here English 1. Okay. In my lesson of the day, the TEK says develop drafts into a focused, structured, and coherent piece of writing in timed and open-ended situations by using an organizing structure appropriate to the purpose, audience, topic, and context. Then it says I need to develop an engaging idea that reflects the depth of thought with specific details, examples, and commentary. I cannot do all that in one class period. I'm not going to be able to. So I deconstructed this TEK. I wrote down the things that scholars need to know. This is what we did last week. And I wrote down the things they need to show to be able to know that. So the skills, yes.
So my idea when you say no, right, is based off not beforehand what they know based off this TEK.
You can do both. You can do both. The prerequisite skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do the readiness stand. That's why they list both readiness and the support. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
So if you was to pick a TEK and it says,
but what I want to say is like those supporting standards. Yeah. Those will be the ones that you can when we get into creating our exemplars, when you have to create CFUs and common misconceptions, your prerequisite skills can be your common misconceptions. Okay. So you can check for understanding with your prerequisite skills.
Okay, I know exactly what you're saying, because if you don't know how to divide, you probably don't know how to add.
Exactly. So if you know, what was one that you said yesterday when we were planning, Mr. G?
The TEK.
So, for example.
Oh, the variables?
Yes.
You can erase all that on the board.
You'll need it. Okay.
What else?
So, for example, Miss Michael was telling me that in Mr. G's class, they were focusing on something with this. One of the misconceptions was that scholars don't know that this is an invisible 2 right there.
Yeah.
Right? So, before they get to Algebra 2, they learn this in some math. Do they learn this in Algebra 1?
Towards when we get to it a little bit.
So, this is something that they learn in Algebra 1. So, he's teaching something with this. A prerequisite is first, do they understand that this is invisible 2? You see what I mean? So this can be one of his check for understandings, right? So he can make sure that this is grasped first before he just gets into what he's teaching about a square root.
Yeah, because it's why it's cubed, because it's a 3.5 times.
Okay. The second thing we want to do is focus on the exit ticket. So what, by the end of the lesson, what is the demonstration of learning scholars need to have mastered? So if I know the skills, all the skills that they need to be doing while they're in class, and I know by the end of the lesson, they need to be able to do this. So I'm going to use an example of a house, right? So by the end of the day, if I need to be able to build a house, right? Am I going to spend the entire day grocery shopping?
No.
Is that going to get me closer to building this house?
No.
No, but one of the things I can do, one of my activities can be, is learning how to use a hammer, because that is a skill I'm going to need to build this house. It's a small skill, but it's going to make a huge difference in the way I put together this house. I'm going to need to know how to use a drill in order to put together a house. So all of your activities, if I want them to create, or if I want them to be able to graph a plot, first I need to know how to read a graph. What is the x-axis? What is the y-axis? So activities that lead them to being able to graph a plot. So take a couple seconds and think about one of your exit tickets. Think about one of your exit tickets.
Okay.
Or even one of your homework assignments, just any kind of like assessment that you've given scholars. One of your tests, one of your projects, something that they have to output to show you that they grasp a concept. Think about an exit ticket or something. Somebody say one out loud.
I had asked my scholars to be able to distribute and solve for x, but it's 2 distribution on one side, and it's just combined like terms on one side, and then the second one was
just do one real quick.
Okay, so that one.
So combine like terms.
Combine like terms and distribute. First you distribute, and then you combine like terms. So if they both got the same letter, you add them together. It's like orange juice.
Let's just start with combine like terms. Okay, and I'm doing that for me because I don't know all that. I know combine like terms. So right. So so at the end of the day, they had to learn how to combine like terms. So what is something that they have to first be able to understand before they are able to combine like terms?
What they have to understand before is what is terms? Like, what are terms? If you don't know terms, you don't know what to combine.
Okay.
So I have to teach them what are terms, what
a variable is,
what a coefficient is, what is constant, that's just a number. So if they see the word constant, they'll know it's just a number.
So would a skill like identification be appropriate for this kind of lesson?
Yes.
Would y'all agree? Yes, identifying coefficients, identifying variables, right? So they can spend an activity identifying before they're applying the skill. Okay, that makes sense. Is everybody kind of on the track with me? Okay. So if this is my standard, I broke down the TEAC, and here's my assessment. So my TEAC says I need them to be able to walk away creating a complete piece of writing. Right? A complete essay. That's the TEAC. I know that they cannot do that in one class period. And if they did, it's going to be terrible, right? I first need to backtrack. I need to first teach them how to write a thesis statement. I need to teach them how to write a body paragraph. I need to teach them transition words. I need to teach them conclusion paragraph. Like, I have to teach them the elements of an essay. So this exit ticket is only going to be focused on the body paragraph, one body paragraph. But the TEAC It's focused on a whole essay. So remember last week when we said, can you have a teak for multiple days, the same teak for multiple days? Yes. The objective is going to change, not the teak. So this day we might be talking about a body paragraph. Tomorrow we might be focusing on transitions to lead you to the next body paragraph. The next day we might be talking about conclusions. We might be editing and revising that last day. Now we have a complete essay and this teak is mastered. But the objective every day might change. What you need to know from day to day might change. Okay? So here's my exit ticket. Scholars will check their body paragraph. So we're spending this day in class writing a body paragraph against the CFS. And we'll come back to what a CFS is, okay? After reviewing the exit ticket with students, I will have them color code their body paragraphs to ensure that they have met all of the CFS. So transitional statements, the background information and context, the evidence, and the analysis. That's how I know that they have mastered this exit ticket and the objective is met. The teak might not be met yet, but that objective for the day is met. Okay? That's how I know, depending on what they get on that exit ticket. So now, what are all the things during this lesson that scholars need to do to get there? So I'm going to focus on the skills. So because I know I want scholars to develop drafts of the body paragraph, and I also know that I want scholars to include a topic sentence, evidence, analysis, and transitions, because that's what I put in my exit ticket. So I know I want all of these parts. I now need to create all of these deliverables to get them there. Okay? So how do I know the above these 2 points that I just made up here? Where did I get this information from? Both. My objective, my teaks. That's how I came up with what I want scholars to walk away doing. Okay?
Skills, right? Okay.
The skills to get to what I want them to know. Right. They have to do these skills to get to the know.
It's just confusing.
Yeah, it'll get easier. Okay? So here are my created deliverables. In my mind, in order to be able to write, the first thing you have to do is when you get the prompt, the question that you have to write about, you first got to unpack it. What does it mean? What do they want me to write about? That's the first step. The second thing I'm going to have them do is I'm going to have them fill out the chores chart to gather evidence and information, because one of the things I wanted them to do is do evidence. Chores is an English acronym, so ignore chores, but that's an acronym. So I want them to fill out a graphic organizer to be able to gather information. Then I want them to brainstorm a map. These are all to get them to the step of writing an essay. Graphic organizer, brainstorming. Then I want them to create an outline. An outline. They're not going to write every part of the outline. They're just going to write one body paragraph. But these will guide my paragraphs. Okay? So it's stuff we do every day, but we don't break it down like this. So when we break it down like this, it helps you create assignments for students. When you break down, okay, what are the steps that I need to take to get here? Okay. So my first deliverable is unpacking the prompt. So on those papers that you have, look at those papers, I printed out the scholar assignment for you. So here's an assignment I created for scholars. Okay. So in the yellow highlighted part, that is what we're doing all day today. Okay? That's what I have scholars doing all day today.
So all 4 parts? There's part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4?
Mm-hmm. Okay. They're just reading and unpacking the writing prompt. Then they're going to fill out that chores chart. They're going to create a brainstorming map. And they're going to create an outline for their essay and write the body paragraph is the exit ticket. But the deliverables are those 4 parts. The exit ticket is writing the body paragraph. But again, remember what I asked myself. How do they get to that exit ticket? They have to do these 4 parts in the yellow. That makes sense? Okay. So when you look at this part 1, their first deliverable, unpacking the prompt, what do you notice about it?
There's a table there for the unpacked.
But what is that in the red? What's it say?
Criteria
Criteria for success. So that's that CFS. So How do scholars know how to be successful with that unpacking the prompt? What are the steps they need to take to be successful doing this? How do they know they're going to be successful in unpacking the prompt?
All those steps that you laid out there.
Yeah, strike out the information.
Unpack it, highlight, underline, do those things.
I have to tell them that as the teacher. This is how you unpack a prompt. A lot of times we're walking around and we hear, oh, go ahead and annotate. Annotate for what? How? What does annotating look like? Those are things, skills that we take for granted that we assume kids know. And if they do, they might just underline, but it's no purpose. They're highlighting, no purpose. So what is it for? So I say strike out the information in the box. So in this, and it won't make sense to you because you don't teach English, but with this, before you get to this expository prompt, there's two other boxes above this on the EOC star. And kids end up writing about those two things, and it throws them off. So that's why strikeout is one of the things we do for unpacking the prompt. Okay, we have them strike out those two things and focus on what the right part. Yeah. On the star, it has think, read, and then write. Think about this, read this, and then write. They'll start writing about what you're thinking about and reading about. So we have them strike that out. So that's the first step. Strike out that information. Okay. Then I want them to strike a line through that think carefully part because they start writing about that. Scratch it out. Now unpack this prompt. So highlight the powerful word. So I want them to highlight this powerful word. I have my exemplar, but we'll get to that. Then I want them to underline what comes after the how, why, or whether. Turn it into a question and answer the question. Okay? So turn it into a question. This is their criteria for success for unpacking the prompt. Not writing the essay, but just unpacking this prompt. So when we get into next week, when we talk about aggressive monitoring, have you all heard the term lapse?
Yeah.
Lapse. Okay. So we haven't dove into it a lot. But when you think about lapse, you're making your laps around the room to make sure scholars are understanding the directions. These right here are your laps. So I can say right now I'm coming around to make sure you have striked out the two boxes I told you to at the beginning. And so if they did it right, then okay, you got it. And if they didn't, you need to come back up and explain what information in the box you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Unpack the prompt. Highlight the powerful word. So I need to make sure every scholar has that same word highlighted. If they don't, then I need to come back and explain what a powerful word is. So this lets you know in real time where scholars are stopping or where they're not understanding and where you need to stop. Any questions so far?
I like the colors on this thing, I'm not gonna lie.
Huh?
I like the colors on this packet.
Yeah, I try to like.
It's a lot of colors.
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I do go around and get tallies. Like, I'll test my do this part, combine like terms, and I'll go around and give tallies to those who did it right. No, I'll wait 10 seconds because I feel like you just can't ask immediately if I do it. I'll wait 10 seconds and I'll go around with my tally list and I'll give them tallies if they got it right. And if they got it wrong, I will tell them to go to the board, and they got it right, I'll tell them to go to the board. So I'll get one person next to each other, and then I'll have them debate about why did this person right, why this person wrong.
So I like that. I'm thinking about like what point in the lesson you would do that, because that could take a lot of time for unnecessary things.
In the guided practice part.
So the guided practice would be a good part to do.
Because sometimes they give you so many questions in the guided practice, which is a lot of examples, which is good. Like I give it, the hook is examples. I'm learning now. The hook is to bring you in and let you know this is what it looks like. And then the guided practice, for me, I like to do the battle board and let them get up there, and I will see. Because when a kid see one person do something.
Hold on real quick, Ms. Morgan. I'm going to pause.